We do a small water special now. So a size 10. Let's do a size 10 fully milled conch. And I'm going to put a bead on this. This is going to be a small water special. So I thought that one of the most obviously popular small water specials is a blue flash damsel, and I've always been a sucker for a cormorant. It's a real fish catcher. So I thought, what can possibly go wrong? A blue flash cormorant. So it's a cracking pattern. It does work really well. So got a size 10 wet fly hook. I'm going for a 2.7mm olive bead. But the chunky thing. Obviously, you can tie them sparser if you want. You can do them thinner.
Yeah, that's good on the beans side, isn't it?
Yeah. So there we go. Some olive thread.
Is that plastic bead or is it?
It's a tungsten. Yeah, tungsten. It's an FNF one. FNF do olive tungsten. This is a 2.7mm. Or 8 it is. Yeah. So some olive thread. We get some blue holographic tinsel. This is a medium. Just get a load of that off. Always got to try and remember to always put the caps back on these. Otherwise you put it back in your spool tray or whatever, and you end up with just like a bird's nest of stuff. So we're going to tie the blue holographic in, run the thread right down to the bend, back up again, and then we're going to wind it. Basically the whole shank of the hook, we're just going to give it a couple of layers of blue holographic. So in the end of the fly, it's quite sort of a subtle, it's nothing too... So that's about 3 layers of blue holographic on there. Same drill as before, I'm going to hold the material up, put 2 turns on the material, put a turn in front, and then it's not going anywhere. Just use my scissor tips to get right in as close as possible, and cut it off nice and short then. So now we're going to go for it's a cormorant, so we're going to go for a cormorant wing. Quite a lot of people do it with like zonker strip. I think zonker strip rabbit fur is a more robust wing than the marabou, but I think the marabou might move a bit better. So I'll just get some nice pale damsel olive marabou. Get rid of some of the rubbish at the bottom. Don't want a massively dense wing. I know a lot of people who tie the cormorants have a really super skinny wing. I don't like them too skinny, but I don't want it too fat. So I'm just going to unzip that off the stem, like peeling a banana off the marabou stalk. You end up with all these little gnarly bits on the end. So I'm going to trim off all the little gnarly bits of stalk on the end. Now I want to tie this in with about 5mm extra protruding, so I can manipulate it and tie it in and then trim off afterwards. But to cut down on the bulk, there's loads of fluff and stuff in there. So to make it more compact, tying in, we'll just thin it out. So I'm going to moisten my fingers, and we're just going to tease out. You'd be amazed how much crap you can tease out of that. So you're not doing it, if you're hearing fibres snapping, you're doing it too aggressively. But if you just keep... So I'm just stripping it out. So that's got rid of loads of bulk out of that now. So we don't want any bulk out of the wing bit, it's just the the little tying in bit, we want to reduce that down. So now I'm going to offer this on top of the shank with about 5mm protruding over the bead. You can pinch and loop it on top, so get a few turns on there. Just check. This is a great bit of having a rotary vise, is you can look at the other side to check it hasn't crept around the other side of the shank at all. And where we've got all this excess, I can fold that back and we can get a few turns in front. It helps sort of lock it in place. And then just with our scissor tips, we can trim off sort of level with the bead, get rid of that waste. So now we're going to create basically a thorax just behind the bead with some straggle. This is an old packet of UV, Flybox UV crystal hackle. So it's got the UV, so it's got a nice little bit of blue in it as well, which will complement the blue body. So make sure you pick the right end to tie it in. So I'm just going to offer the tip. That's where we've tied the marabou in. Get a few turns on that. So now we're going to wind the straggle. So I want to get a turn. I'm going to lift the wing up. Get a turn under the wing. Helps sort of cock the wing up, as if I haven't cocked it up enough. And so try and tease all the fibres back as you go. Get a turn right behind the bead. Probably another half a turn. Put it tight. A few turns on. Turn in front. And this is basically it now. We're going to trim off the straggle. And then with the beads, the same trick I've basically been doing where I've been varnishing the thread first. This is what I sort of started doing that for, because obviously what a varnish, my whip finish in there, I'm never going to be able to get, even if you've got like an acupuncture needle, you're never going to get the varnish down in there. So the best way is to varnish the thread first. And I was guiding on Manningford with a couple of people, and we were really struggling, which is really unlike Manningford, because normally it's really, it's quite an easy sort of fishery, and we were struggling. As soon as I started putting one of these on, that was what made the day. It was that sort of opened the account for us. So it's been working well. So whip finish, put it tight. Hopefully it all cinches in down behind the bead. I'm just going to rip the wing to length. So basically, when this is swimming, it's got the sort of sparse wing, so it isn't a million miles away from the natural damsel, just a little olive wriggly thing.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of the damsels you sort of see, they're massive things. So this isn't massively obtrusive, but it's worked well. So I sometimes like to, instead of having it ripping it straight with my cormorants, I sometimes like to have it shorter on the bottom and longer on the top, so it's got a bit of a taper to the wing. But I think that might just be me. So there you go. So blue flash cormie.